everyone, I'm Cassidy Jensen, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Grace Allspaw, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And we are both owners of our own therapy practices and passionate about the world of therapy.
This is Two View Therapy, the podcast, a show where we will explore popular shows, hot topics in today's culture, relational struggles, and family dynamics.
Join us for your weekly session.
Because if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Mother. Okay.
Good morning.
I thought we were going to end up being frozen, so I'm going to catch myself there. We have a lot of technological difficulties. The internet here is quite slow.
Garbage.
It is. I feel like I'm going to bring it up at our next meeting, but Rick, if you're listening, our Wi-Fi is terrible. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly not the best. But I don't know if there's really great options out there.
No, probably not. And a lot of the time, there's multiple of us using it, that kind of thing. So,
But right now, it's just us.
but anyways, how are you this morning?
Doing good as we're just kind of dissecting the day. We've already been up and at it. We've been doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
We're recording, and I've got clients, and then I'm really happy it's the weekend.
Yeah. I think we regulated a minute ago talking about organs.
Oof, yeah, because I was like on one.
We needed a minute to get it together so we could start this.
Yeah, my youngest just wanted to sit down with me and be 6. And he just had some happy things on his mind. And he wanted to have a chat.
It's like, how cool that he could come to you with that.
Yeah, he's really struggled. Like, he'll get angry and hit. So over the last year and a half, I've really been like, okay, let's use our words and talk through this. So I had to thank him and let him know that I appreciated him.
Yeah.
Pulling me aside and wanting to express what he was feeling. And it kind of came down to really feeling overwhelmed and pressure. And I think that was creating some sadness, which really sucked to hear. So we're going to mull it over and try to collaborate how we can work through this together.
I think that's a great thing to acknowledge here at the beginning of today's episode. As you can see by the title of our episode, it's about asking for help.
Yeah.
And this morning, despite it being very early, 6 a.m.-ish, he asked for help.
He did.
And that's huge and so hard to do.
Right. And that's what I think as parents, you want to hear. You want to be a part of. Well, and I mean, as soon as he did, I have my own thoughts of uh-oh, I went to if I'm doing something, what could this be about?
Yeah.
Parents that go with that. I don't know.
Well, it had an impact on you that he was expressing a need.
Yeah.
That at 6 a.m. is a lot.
So it's a very vulnerable thing, I think, both ways. Someone had to really stay open to it and not personalize it.
Yeah. It's about him and his situation.
Yep.
More so than it is about you.
Yes, and I think that's difficult sometimes for parents to separate. It's not about you. Yeah. And if it feels messy and hurtful, sometimes it is, because that's the only verbiage they've got. Because usually he's the one that's quick to say something that's kind of shitty, and I'm like, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks would be the polite thing I wanted to say.
Yeah. I end up with a lot of teens in my office who are screaming for help. They need something. And I know your youngest is not a teenager, but they express it in session what they need.
Well, right. Yeah.
What's going on? Why? I mean, a lot of the time I have some suicidal ideation.
It's more commonly that right now.
Yes.
It seems like they've tried everything else, and it feels so alone.
Yes. And what else can you do to say you need help when everything else has been ignored?
Especially when they're just screaming from the rooftops.
Yeah. I need help. Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to hear.
Yes. Which, with that, I often end up being the one who says to their parent, hey, Like, we need to get it together because your kid is screaming at the top of their lungs for help. And parents don't always take that well. It seems like, I think sometimes that I'm coming at them and attacking, like, you're not doing what you should be.
Yeah, you suck.
Which is way not my intention at all. And I express that. I'm like, there's no shame. I'm not trying to create guilt or judgment.
No,
this is a sole
issue.
Yes, your kid needs help. How do we do that? And I think your experience this morning of being able to say to him, okay, what do you think would help with that? Like, you're feeling this overwhelmed. What do you think could help? Let's maybe game plan, and very gentle.
I'm trying to be.
That a lot of parents don't do, because I think when kids come to them and say, I need something, or I'm overwhelmed, it can often feel like they're pointing the finger that the parent's not doing what they should be.
Well, and I think that's what I noticed initially as like, fuck, like, what am I doing wrong that's creating this?
Yeah. Like, which, it's not really on you. Like, something's just not working. And so you just reevaluate.
Yeah. So he's going to think it through, and hopefully either tonight or tomorrow we can have a conversation about what things might look like. Because I always try to like facilitate him having choice, at least some choice, gets to choose what he wants to wear or eat for breakfast. Like, in the mornings, like, there's only a certain amount of things that we can do, but we've got to knock him out and pay for school. So I think he's just feeling like sometimes too rushed, or it's just, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And I didn't get to have say in that.
Which, it can be overwhelming. I mean, as adults, and also as kids, to just not know or not have the choice to make a decision for yourself. Like, you and I were talking earlier, no TV in the mornings.
Yeah.
That is intentional on your part, of like, it creates problems. And so, like, it's just a no, but it's a choice that's taken from him. And yes, as it should be. I'm not saying anything. You should be able to watch it. But I do think as kids, I hear it so much. I mean, right now, the youngest kid I see is 7. And then I have all the way through. I mean, I have a wide range, but I have really probably a kid at almost every, between, I have a 7 and then 10 to 18. I have one of each. And overall, not always, but like this overarching in general, I hear frustration with lack of choices. And then you add on things aren't working for them. So then how do they ask for help? And like, all the things that come with that. It can be overwhelming for them. It can be overwhelming for us.
Right. Yeah. No, I think overwhelm is just across the board.
Yeah. I think both of us this week were like, hey, I've got a lot going on. I need a minute.
Yep.
Which is fair and necessary.
The last couple of weeks just kicked us while we were down.
Well, school's starting back up for a lot of people, and you're back in a different swing of things, but kid drop off and pick up with school, and
I just feel like there's just not been enough time.
I told you that the other day. I was like, there's not enough hours in the day right now. I never thought I'd say that. I'd heard my parents say that growing up. There's never enough hours. And now I'm like, there's never enough hours.
There's not.
No. So in that, there's never enough hours. How do you ask for help? How do you reach out when you need something when there's so much going on?
I feel like it's tricky. And I think my answer that comes to my head quickly here is going to be a lot of people's answers, probably predominantly female listeners. Not asking for help, but making shitty passive aggressive comments, just letting those just pop off and be in the atmosphere.
Yes. I think when you look at this gender wise, like if we're splitting this, just male, female. Okay. Women, I think, have a hard time asking for help because it's ingrained in our society. Women can do it all.
We're supposed to.
Yes, get it done. You go to work, you take care of the kids, you cook, you do whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it is.
Right.
Right? And then I think men also struggle to ask for help because You should be strong. You should be able to handle
Others is health weakness.
Yes. So for women, I think it's this like superpower that turns bad of like, they can do it all. They can figure it out. They don't need to ask for help. And then with men, it's this, in a sense, pride.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this. I don't need any help. Here in my office, I have a few clients right now that are of the men category, male category, and they say therapy is stupid. It makes men have emotions or whatever. And I'm like,
You're supposed to if you're in the
yeah, it's like that's just in general, but whatever. But I do think both sides it's hard. Women, I think, really struggle with more so the asking piece. They can acknowledge they need help. Men, I think, have a harder time acknowledging him.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the first step is recognizing that you need the help in the first place, or, you know, you need to reprioritize, or, yeah, your plate's too full.
Yes. Yeah. So, in that of asking for help, one, I'd be curious of like who you would say is safe space to ask for help of, like, not necessarily just specific to you, but in general, people, who would be a safe person to ask for help? Should that be family or friends or a partner or a sibling?
Yeah, or is your support system?
Is that who you reach out for help?
Well, I think you also have to be aware that it's a vulnerable hurdle, so it's going to feel uncomfortable if you're not used to it.
Yeah, it will get easier. I just asked a client the other day a question of like, what does moving forward look like? And they just looked at me and they were like, I think I just need time. It's like, yeah, over time, this gets easier of asking for help or getting more comfortable asking for help. I think when we first started this, at the beginning, I wouldn't have said, I'm struggling, or I'm having a hard time, or could you do this? Because I don't have the capacity for it, whatever. And now, I texted you yesterday. Sorry, social media's having a hard time. I'm having a hard time. It's and stuff. But like, asking for help gets easier, I think, the deeper a relationship goes.
Well, I think it depends on the relationship. Some relationships might be easier to facilitate that support and ask for help versus others, maybe friendships versus intimate. I don't know.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. What's your perspective or thought process on what happens if there's no support system?
Well, I think that facilitates the need to do it all on your own, and I think that can lead to burnout. I think, too, how do I want to phrase this? The narrative that somebody comes up with of I have to do it on my own. Look, there's nobody around me. It is just on me. And every time there's no one around, or I ask and it's not met and received, like that just re-solidifies. I have to do this on my own.
With you saying that, I've got a definition for us.
Yay.
So hyper independence is something we're gonna touch on here, especially as what you were just saying. I have to do this on my own because there's no one around. I think sometimes that can be an imagined of, or a sense of loneliness, that there are people there, but the avoidance or like thought process of I have to do this alone, that kind of thing. But I do think there are people who don't have that support system.
Yeah.
Anyways, hyperindependence. I've got a definition.
Let's hear it.
Hyperindependence is a mental health condition that describes when someone is extremely self-reliant and avoids asking for help from others, even when it's not helpful or when they need it. So, like within that, people who are hyper-independent may have a difficult time trusting and relying on others.
I feel like bringing up trust here is a really good point.
Yes. Huge. Trust that if you ask for help and you don't trust that person, then what happens?
Yeah, well, because you don't want to be let down and disappointed. Because there is that I asked for help. Now I'm waiting for that help to happen. Oh, and it didn't. And now I'm feeling like a jackass because I asked and it didn't happen. Or even thinking, if you don't trust anyone in your life, but you need help, how do you navigate that? Yeah, who the heck am I supposed to go to?
Yeah. Like weigh almost the lesser of two evils. Like, do you trust this person more or this person more? You maybe don't trust either of them fully.
Well, yeah, and maybe it's a different issue where you could seek help from a professional or, contact somebody to, like, I don't know. I'm thinking like house repairs or something. I don't know.
Or even mental health.
Yeah.
I have people say all the time, I talk to my friends about this, but I don't feel like it goes anywhere. Or,
oh gosh, yes, I get that one a lot.
so like people coming to someone like us, this is a neutral party. There's no judgment, no shame, no should or shouldn't.
Oh yeah. Do you ever get the clients that are like, "Ugh, I know you're just hating that I'm saying this again."
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's just process it again.
Yep. Yep.
That's my job.
Yeah. I do have people who say that a lot. Like, you're gonna hate this. And I'm like,
I mean,
yeah. Do you hate it? Is that why you think I'm gonna hate it?
yeah, I wonder if they're kind of like, I've heard that before, and they're like, I know what I should do, or I know the choice that I should make, but it's not that easy.
Yes. I think people often, I had a client just last night who said, what do you think I should do?
What do you think you should do?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you that. I do think it's okay for you to listen to your gut. Like, what's your body telling you?
I'd like to say, like, 1, 2, 3, go. What do you think?
Oh, I like that. Puts you on the spot, gets you to say whatever.
Like, what's your initial, like, reaction?
Okay.
Or I do the miracle question.
Oh, yes.
Everything's fine. You don't have to worry about anything.
Yes.
It was a miracle. Like, what would that situation end up playing out as?
I remember learning the miracle question and thinking, wow, this is so overwhelming because it's like 5 sentences long and you're supposed to say like exactly that, aren't you?
Oh, I don't say it how I just did.
Me too. I don't say the 5-sentence thing because I can't remember the 5 sentences.
I don't remember.
I just think it's a long thing.
Is it? I don't know what but we've already discussed your schooling was more in depth than mine.
In some ways.
I think most ways.
There's another piece of this that they put on here for the hyper independence that I think we should acknowledge. Of often people who are hyper independent put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, I speak for myself with that hyper independence. I mean, my parents, wanted us all to be strong and independent.
Yeah.
I've almost taken that on as a personality. Even, like I can be a superhero. But then you're just like digging a hole for yourself at some point.
Well, and why do you need to be? Like, thinking about that superhero mentality, what does that do for you?
I don't think it really does anything. Like, reflecting on that now. I can be self-reliant and I don't need anybody.
Yeah, I think I fall into that trap of I'm single. I don't have any children. Like, the dog needs me and that's it. And so, like, I get into these moments where I'm like, why would I ever get into a relationship? Like, then I'd have to tell someone what I'm doing or say, we have plans tonight. Like, I have such an independence of like, I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
Which I think for the most part is healthy for me. But at times,
I think it's not. I think relationships should fall more towards a want, as you should be self-sufficient and have your stuff together than a need and that, like, going into codependence.
Yeah. Well, I joke therapy back is 1 + 1 is 3 because there's 2 individuals and the couple. You don't get rid of the individual.
Again, that like goes back to identity.
Yes. I see so many systems that have lost their identity. And I often tell them 1 + 1 is 3 and they look at me like, you're crazy. And maybe I am a little.
Yeah.
But you're here for a reason.
Oh man, you came to me.
Yeah,
So,
you're sitting in here. But I think they go in the opposite direction of that hyper independence, where they're so heavily enmeshed that they just don't know who they are
yeah.
anymore. But this perfection, we circle back to that. How do you suggest people break that pattern of perfection and hyper independence and allow other people to help them?
Did that elaborate more on hyper independence equaling perfectionism? I'm curious how that gets bridged a little bit. I don't know if it's just such that need and control to do everything and it needs to look a certain way because the expectations are grand and we're only depending on ourselves. So then we also would probably lack some flexible thinking or the ability to adapt more quickly at times.
Yes, I think people who are hyper independent can be very rigid. There's not a ton of flexibility. Flexibility would mean if someone else was participating, that they got some creative brain. Like,
Yeah.
they could do things their way. And if you allowed someone else to help and it wasn't your way, so then you hold on to it so tightly.
Yeah.
Because what if they do it wrong?
Well, I was going to say, I think that kind of goes back into that trust. I know I can do it well and do it the best. Don't know what you're capable of. Don't want you to mess it up. I think group projects on this one. Like school group projects.
Yeah.
I always hated doing those because I didn't want my work to be ruined by other people.
I didn't want to have to work with other people. That's telling. I wanted to do it by myself. I didn't want to have to like, oh, you do this, I'll do that, because it stressed me out that what if they didn't do their piece?
Right. I
Like
don't
that
want to
worried
be penalized because you suck.
Yes. It was more so, not that my way, I thought my way was better. It was that, what if I fail because someone else did?
There wasn't a collaboration.
Yeah. Which is maybe a trust piece. I didn't trust them to do it.
I just feel like those just really were awful. And I had to do some at college.
Yeah.
Which also
awful.
And my graduate, I remember, I had to do group project.
Me too.
Why?
Yeah.
I work by myself.
Yes. I will say, it says in here, hyper independence can be, not always, a trauma response. It's often learned in childhood as a survival mechanism to protect oneself from unpredictable things. So that could be abuse, neglect, or loss, family conflict, relational issues. I would even say it could be lack of trust. Like,
I think it is going to keep going to that because as a child, you become self-reliant. That's because you've learned, well, maybe that going to an adult figure wasn't safe or is going to create conflict or is tumultuous. Or you can't really trust the situation, the person.
That's interesting. I wrote down for our notes today, how do you regain trust?
Yeah.
I just noticed that.
I feel like that one just across the board in all capacities because trust looks different in multiple scenarios. I feel like there's always this expectation that, okay, like maybe we recognize trust is broken and then let's just fix it.
I hear so much in my office, specifically parents and kids. Well, they just need to regain my trust. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I like to say, what does that look like then?
Yes.
And then I've gotten, well, they don't really have any opportunities to build trust. And I'm like, well, then how are they ever going to? I've got a 16-year-old. She's like, I'd love to. I understand where my mom's coming from. I'd love to regain it.
Yeah.
But there's like no opportunities to do that because she's closed off all of those avenues.
I'm pretty relentless with parents when we talk about trust, and more so out of the benefit of the kid. But I will ask questions and be like, okay, you want to regain trust. Okay. How do you think you can do that? And then I hear from teenagers how they think they can regain trust. And then I flip to parents and I say, okay, what can your kid do to regain trust? And they'll say, well, just prove that they're trustworthy.
How?
So then I'm like, okay, I need fine details. Like, I need
this out.
yes, as many things as you could possibly say right now to help me understand, because if I don't understand as an adult, like who has regained trust with people before, all the things, how can your 15-year-old with no fully developed brain figure out what they're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Often, though, when we get into the nitty gritty of that, I hear with people is actions speak louder than words. Okay. Well, if you don't ever give them an opportunity to see their actions, it's the same in this. I've asked for help, or I'm not asking for help because I don't trust this person.
Right.
Well, if you don't ever ask for help, how can they gain that trust? How can you get to know if they'll trust?
Why would we expect them to change too? Why would we expect them to know that you needed that if you're not even asking?
Which I'm not saying in that. Please don't hear me say. Trust them with your biggest life situation.
People have to have opportunities for growth, though.
Yes. Start small. Yeah. What do you trust them with? I mean, I'm trying to think right now in my mind. So like, what's a small thing you could trust somebody?
I don't know. I go teens, like phones, hang out with friends unattended if they reach a certain age. That one's a big one. Like, my mom has to go everywhere with me, and I'd love to have, like 2 hours at the movies with my friends.
Showing up on time for therapy.
Yeah. Are you getting X, Y, and Z done at home?
Yeah.
If you've got that done,
Yep.
Maybe there can be some more freedoms.
Yep. My parents always wanted to know, like, if I was staying at a friend's house and we were going to leave and, like, go to Wichita, or, I mean, obviously, if we're going to walk down the street to their neighborhood pool or, go get a Sonic drink, that wasn't as big of a deal. But if we were, like, completely changing venues and, like, they weren't going to know where I was at all, that they requested I would text them and let them know. They don't necessarily need all the details, but, like, hey, I know we were going to be here, but actually their parents have said yes, and we're going here.
This just gave me a really good thought too. So mine was the same. Like, I like to go to the mall after school Sundays, so I'd let my mom know. I didn't have a smartphone. I just had a dumb phone. We had the opportunity to say, like, I'm running late, or I'm not home yet because I'm going X, Y, and Z. Teens these days, they get the live 360. So I just think that's it. Yeah. I don't know. I would hate to be a teen in today's day and age.
I just said that to someone yesterday about,
like, I don't envy you. Yeah. I think parents are looking at that, and instead of having an opportunity to see maybe if the teen would potentially, like, fast up, like, oof, the parent could just be like, I see you're here. You're done. Instead of having an opportunity of them saying, like, oh, I actually went X, Y, and Z after, and I hope that was okay. I don't know. I think it doesn't facilitate as much conversation around expectation. It's just, you fucked up. You're done.
Well, and if the expectation isn't clear, like, why would they tell you? If the expectation isn't clearly said, I need you to let me know, then why would they? And then you get pissed that they didn't.
Right. When did you say they needed to?
Yeah. I think trust is really tricky, and it's very hard to regain in general. But especially as a teenager, when I think, in a sense, parents get frustrated and shut down.
Yeah.
And maybe the kid needed help, or, like, was having a hard time remembering things. I just recently had a teen who was diagnosed with ADHD. The brain processes differently. I have a harder time keeping track of sequential things, making sure everything's done, that a list has been taken care of, all those things. And in a way, their parents were very shamey and, like, had said at a few points, like, we're so disappointed in you. Like, which those are such big, like, that's a huge thing to say. And so then now it's just kind of like this. Well, like, oh, they've got ADHD, so, like, whatever. There can be expectations, but it also maybe needs to be stated differently. Maybe they need it written down. Maybe they need it talked about before they leave the house.
We need to collaborate and find something different.
Yes. And it's not
I have a hard time with parents saying, we've said this, and so that's final. Where the kid could be struggling, but because parents have said this is final, how do they ask for help?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think this can work in a lot of relationships. If you're just automatically shut down, why do you want to try? I mean, that just further ignites that I just need to do this. I am all alone. Nobody gets it.
Well, I also think it breaks trust the other way. If your parents shut you down every single time you need something, or your partner, whoever it is, well, then there's lost trust both ways, I think.
Yeah.
I do often think, and this isn't something we need to talk about a ton, but that this is how we end up with so many suicidal teenagers, is that they're shut down. There's not a place for mistake.
We're trapped. We're stuck. There's a lot of pressure.
Who do you ask for help? It's like you're drowning.
Yeah. I've said, I can't do this. I don't know. I think with some people, I think adults included, I think it's not necessarily saying they need help. I think it's a discussion or ends up coming off maybe as complaints, but kind of like, I'm overwhelmed. There's like this many things to do. I think it's being perceived as a complaint or something negative, and I think that's just the language that it's coming out as.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I hear a lot of times parents calling their kids disrespectful, or saying, well, they're just seeking attention, manipulative. I want to swim when I hear those things, because I'm, what if they are seeking attention? Like, that means something else is going on, and maybe they don't know how to ask for help, or tell you that they need something different, or say they're struggling. Yes. And also, how scary to say to a parent, you're not doing that for me, or this is too much for me.
Well, I think too, with asking for help, will the other person be like reactive?
How scary. Which that reactivity, I think, looking at hyper-independence, trains people.
Yep. I got it.
Yeah. I also think siblings are our longest relationships. Should be, right? We know them from birth. Often our parents don't have us. So our siblings are there. What do you think in all this of like, siblings should be a relationship that's trustworthy, that we have somewhat of a connection. What does that look like for asking help, and what if they don't help?
Well, I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I've got some really kick-ass siblings. Congrats. Thank you. Yes. Don't want to rub it in anyone's face. But I think we've all struggled at different times. I mean, or if I think I recognize it with one sibling, I fill in the other ones and say like, hey, maybe they need a little bit more support, or, check in with them a little bit more.
You find any difference, semi off topic, but also partially on it. You find any difference with that, because you have two sisters, with your sisters versus your brother?
My brother doesn't talk as much, and I think he gets more wrapped up in it. So yeah, I think between my sisters and I, we're usually communicating every day and just letting each other know. And I have to sometimes go out of my way and check in with my brother. How are things going? I think he doesn't want to. I think we all have a sense of not wanting to burden others. So there's another little nugget for asking for help. I think so.
Hi.
Ooh, I also thought about this too with the burdening. Like, mine, it feels silly. We're into adulthood, and it still feels like in different avenues we're struggling.
I think sadly there's this expectation that life will get easier, isn't it?
I thought so as a kid, and now I am cusping 30, and I'm like, wow, I still don't have it figured out.
I, just as you said that, heard my dad say in my head, who does? Because we talk all the time of like, I don't have it together yet. Like, I don't, how do I sit with clients? How do I whatever? Which is, gosh, yeah, back to that imposter syndrome. But he says all the time, who do you know that has it together? Like, everyone has their own stuff they're dealing with. And to address that and acknowledge it also takes vulnerability and trust, which can be really scary.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think as a kid looking up, I have this conversation with my 7-year-old a lot. And I'm like, I make a lot of mistakes and I'm not perfect. And he's like, you do? And I'm like, yeah. I usually point it out. I'm like, yep, there it was. Or my mom liked to hold on to a lot of my schoolwork over the years. And since moving, and anyway, I get to be graced with taking more back.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yes. But I keep some of that when they have mistakes. So then, as he's getting older, he can look at it. Yeah. I just got off topic of it there. Where was I going with that?
The expectation as an adult, you have it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a kid, just like, oof, they just really
I just got a book in the mail. I read it yesterday. With my younger clients, we read a book typically at the end of session, like one of those little like,
look at you going above and beyond.
oh no, it's in a sense, it's a time waster, but also it's the like mental health book. So like learning about emotions and expression and all that. And I got one that's called The Girl Who Makes a Million Mistakes. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know if I want kids to read this of like identifying themselves with being a mistake. I didn't like that. But then I read the book and I thought, she took things she was making a mistake at and kept working for it. And through the book, you see her saying positive affirmations and not taking it on as her own. And I think we do that where we take it on as our own and say, well, I just keep making mistakes. Like, I just need to deal with this on my own. I just need to like keep it internal.
Yeah. Well, because what does it mean if I make a mistake?
I didn't acknowledge it.
Well, what have you been told? Again, the inner monologue.
I'm curious what you think on the opposite end of this, of if you're relying on someone else too much.
Well, both, I think, autonomy. But this one, I think, like a lack of autonomy. Like we've become too reliant on others.
There's investment.
Yeah. Codependency, like confidence. Were you not shown? Do you not feel like you can rely on your own abilities and trust in yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that a lot. And sometimes I think push the kids a little bit more, but I see a lot of teens who are about to graduate and that is like almost detrimentally scary. They do nothing. And I'm like, I want you to be capable human beings. So I am like aware. I really try not to helicopter. I'm more hands-off because I do have one that asks for help a lot more. Instead of just automatically helping him, I say like, look, I want you to try things. And he gets frustrated and I know it sucks, but I'm trying to build resiliency.
I also think there's a limit to that of like, if he's in danger or, those kinds of things, absolutely, like, you're helping. But when it's tying shoes.
Shoes and asking if I can open the Slim Jim.
That was very specific. You seem like maybe you have some extension.
Yeah, I do.
I haven't eaten a Slim Jim in probably over 10 years. But if I remember correctly, they're kind of hard to open.
Yeah, they are. But I'm like, how can we think outside of the box and not just rely on me? No, sometimes I'll offer up suggestions. Like, I wonder. I always do. I wonder. So then the youngest sometimes will bring up. He say things like, I wonder what about. Anyway, I'm like, what about? I wonder, like, if scissors could be useful.
Oh.
So maybe he'll try a couple more times. And he's like, oh, I think it would be a great idea if I find some scissors and try to cut it.
Well, we never said that.
Yeah, that seemed like your idea.
That's awesome. So with these two pieces, you have like the inability to rely on others.
And
then you have the extreme enmeshment with other people.
Yes.
Yeah, those are opposites. In my head, I was like, did I say that right?
No, yeah. I was like, the far spectrums on both ends.
Yeah, the two extremes.
Yes.
How do you find a balance? How do you pick pieces of both of that? Like knowing your limits, relying on yourself and saying, okay, I've tried to do this. I don't have the ability. I need to ask for outside help versus, oh yeah, that's my question. Like, how do you balance that? Well, I guess there's another piece of that, but you get what I'm asking.
I smell what you're saying. With anything, I always state to clients, like, having awareness of the situation or the thought or the need is the first step. Knowing like something is amiss or lacking. I think it kind of comes down to communication. And I think this is still dependent on if you have a safe space. Because I think when you recognize what you're needing and how you need to ask for help, it's being vulnerable with yourself and constructing and formulating a sentence that is conducive to conversation instead of just like a passive aggressive moan. Like it needs to be received with curiosity and openness.
Okay. Okay. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think that's easier said than done.
Yeah. 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 I do think in all of this, vulnerability plays a pretty significant role. And choosing to be vulnerable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And saying, I have tried. I have put in effort to do what I can. And this is outside of my limits.
Yeah.
And to also be okay with that. It's also part of that self-reflection. Am I okay with not being able to do this? Whatever it is.
Yeah. Can we become more flexible? Can we reprioritize? Can we adjust expectations?
Yes. Yes. I know nothing about vehicles, okay? And my dad changes my oil for me. He has taught me how to do the whole thing. To check it, to change it, the whole thing, right? And I like to play dumb, but that's outside of my limits. I like to act as if I can't do that, right? Which is a silly little thing, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So my limit there is that I can check it. I can check the oil in my car and say, oh, it's low, it needs some more. I can put some more in it, whatever. I draw the limit at changing the oil. I'm like, that's outside of my whatever. But I have to say to him, hey, Dad, my oil's getting a little low. It's at, my car tells me what percentage. Or not that it's getting low, that it needs an oil change.
Yeah.
And it'll tell me percentage, and I'll be like, it's at 30% or whatever. And then it'll be like, okay, when can I have it? Like, when can I do this for you? Whatever.
It's funny that you change your voice when asking your dad for something, because when I ask my dad for something, I'm like,
yeah. Hey, could you? Hi. And he knows dang well what I do.
No, he's like, what do you need?
But it's in a sense a vulnerable thing for me because I can do it. I am an adult. Really, I should pay someone to do it, but it's cheaper with him. I pay for the oil. He doesn't. So like, fair trade, right? Yeah. That's a silly example.
Well, I think you could do it. You just don't.
Absolutely not. I don't want to. I do not want to. But I'm acting as if it's outside my limit. So really, if I had higher independence in some areas, I would do it on my own.
You have the space for it.
Yeah, the time, the energy
to get dirty. We have,
yes, get under the vehicle. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, could I?
Probably, yeah.
But, and I know that's silly. It's just a tiny thing, but like that expands into other areas.
Right.
I'm about to road trip. 20 hours one way, 20 hours the other way.
Yeah.
And I said to him the other day, is there any way you could run whatever diagnostic testing you can do on my vehicle to make sure it's all good? That's outside of my limits. I don't know how to do that. So I could take and get that done. Or I could ask him for help.
Well, dads have all the tools, okay?
They do.
Check with them first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I even said, do you want me to take it somewhere else? He was like, no, I should be able to do this, whatever. So there is also that boundary for him to be able to say no. Like, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think too, with asking for help with certain people, they can either say like, this is within my own scope, or like, I think giving recommendations or other suggestions.
Yes.
I'd love to help you, but I think you need to try this place instead.
Yes.
Or you need to reach out here.
So ultimately, if we looked at this big picture of asking for help, trust is required.
Trust, vulnerability, communication,
Boundaries. Willingness to be rejected.
Yes.
If someone says, no, I can't do that.
Willingness to stumble if you're really self-reliant on others.
There's a lot of pieces to this that take time and practice. This isn't an overnight figure it out.
Right.
This is work towards being
Baby steps.
Yes.
Take time. Like anything. I think that we have to be mindful that if nothing changes. Oh, man, I definitely.
We wanted to say thank you for listening today. You can find our Instagram at 2View Therapy and view our merchandise through our Etsy shop at 2View Therapy.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If you are in a mental health crisis, contact your local crisis center, or you can call and text 988.